This podcast is sponsored by Talkspace. You know when you're really stressed or not feeling so great about your life or about yourself? Talking to someone who understands can really help. But who is that person? How do you find them? Where do you even start? Talkspace. Talkspace makes it easy to get the support you need. With Talkspace, you can go online, answer a few questions about your preferences, and be matched with a therapist. And because you'll meet your therapist online, you don't have to take time off work or arrange childcare. You'll meet on your schedule, wherever you feel most at ease. If you're depressed, stressed, struggling with a relationship, or if you want some counseling for you and your partner, or just need a little extra one-on-one support, Talkspace is here for you. Plus, Talkspace works with most major insurers, and most insured members only pay a $25 copay or less. No insurance, no problem. Now get $80 off of your first month with promo code SPACE80 when you go to Talkspace.com. Match with a licensed therapist today at Talkspace.com. Save $80 with code SPACE80 at Talkspace.com.
What's the easiest choice you can make? Window instead of middle seat? Picking a vendor who sends a great gift basket? Outsourcing business tasks you hate? What about selling with Shopify? Whether you're selling a little or a lot, Shopify helps you do your thing, however you cha-ching. Shopify is the global commerce platform that helps you sell at every stage of your business. From the launch your online shop stage to the first real-life store stage, all the way to the did we just hit a million orders stage. Shopify's there to help you grow. Whether you're selling scented soap or offering outdoor outfits, Shopify helps you sell. Wherever and whatever you're selling, Shopify's got you covered. Sign up for a $1 per month trial period at shopify.com/try. Go to shopify.com/try now to grow your business, no matter what stage you're in. Shopify.com/try.
Welcome back to another episode of the Girl Stop Playin podcast. It's your favorite homegirl, Coriel, here to encourage you to stop playing with your potential and start working for what you want in life and in love. You already know that I'm bringing you the information and the conversations to help you make the money and get the honey. You can have it all as long as you are willing to work. And I'm not even going to lie to y'all. This topic of conversation for this week's episode is a tough one. It's one that is not often talked about, but it's one that is so necessary, especially if we claim to be grown women. This is one of those conversations that we have to welcome, prepare for, and go out into our own individual communities and have with our loved ones as well. And so to help me get into this topic, we are talking to Kenisha Brown-Alexander, who is professionally a trailblazer in the sports industry. But we don't just talk about business here on Girl Stop Playin. We get all up in your business. So welcome to the show, Kenisha.
Thank you, Coriel. I'm so excited to be here and have this conversation.
Excited to have you. So I said we're going to get all up in your business, but I am going to at least allow you the chance to give yourself a proper introduction.
All good. I move in a spirit of transparency. I think that we find growth and relatability in people when we can be open and honest. So I am open to it. But I am Kenisha Nichelle. I am originally from Louisville, Kentucky, but I currently reside in Miami, Florida. Today, present day, I am a sports executive, currently as the Senior Director of Operations for an HBCU football classic. I love what I do. Sports is definitely my passion. It is the thing that kept me going in spite of the trauma that I have experienced. But it is the trauma that has gotten me here. And in a nutshell, I was hit very early in life with grief and loss. At the age of 12, I lost my father to a brain aneurysm. I was a daddy's girl. I'm an only child. So it definitely shook up my world. And then to fast forward at 21, I lost my mother to breast cancer. And it was tough. I literally became an adult orphan at 21, feeling like, what else is there to life? Because I haven't accomplished much. I'm still just a junior in college, no kids, haven't been married, haven't done any of the things. And so I was lost and I really didn't know how to pick up the pieces. And because of that, I re-entered life too soon, as I often say. I lost my mother in July. And of course, if you're in college, you go back to school in August. So at the time, I was a full-time student. I was a athletic trainer for the women's basketball team. I was a new sorority member. I was working part-time at the bookstore to try to, get some extra coins. And I just was not processing my grief. And, I grew up in the church, definitely a Christian, but all it took was one wrong response from my supervisor who told me that I could not go home to see my family, that sent me wanting to end my life. And I attempted it because I just didn't feel like that there was, anything else that I could even do. But I'm grateful that God said, no, baby girl, I got something else for you. And he saved me. And it's because I did not know the me now still existed and was there inside of me back then. And so I just, I'm on a mission now to just help those that may be navigating grief or not understanding how to process it, because there is still life available to you after loss. But we just have to work through it, and we have to make sure we have the right tools to be able to get to that beautiful life on the other side.
So I wanted to start this conversation by finding out like what you would describe as like your girl stop playing moment. Because the whole premise of the show is like, stop playing with your potential, stop playing with yourself, like get back in the game. And really figure out what it is that you're meant to do, what it is that you're being called to do. But I feel like you just answered that in your attempt to take your life and God not even allowing you to do that. So would you say that that was your girl stop playing moment? And what was that moment? Like, what did that look like? I appreciate you saying, you believe in the spirit of transparency, because we hear these stories, but I don't usually have the opportunity to ask someone who has personally experienced it. Like, what?
Yeah.
Can you take us to that moment?
I can. So, honestly, again, I did not know that even lived inside of me as a thought. Like I said, I grew up as church girl in the youth choir, Bible study, all of the things. So you never really know what type of pain and hurt lives inside of you until you're met with it. And so all it took was just one wrong conversation, one wrong thing to be said that just penetrated the pain that was held deep down inside. So that could have been the start of my kind of girl stop playing moment. But honestly, it came further out. So 2017 was the year that was 10 years since I lost, both of my parents collectively. And 2017, I literally just woke up one day and was like, I'm tired of the pain. I'm tired of the hurt. I'm tired of being sad. And I just, at the time, by that time I'd been married. I have a daughter. And so I had done some things, but I was still kind of wallowing in the self-pity. When the angel anniversaries would come around or birthdays would come around, I would almost intentionally put myself in a negative space. But I reached a point where I said, I'm literally tired. Like, I don't want to feel like this anymore. And I think that girl stop playing moment was, you got to take full control of your life. You have to be the owner of it, right? You have to step into a place to say, if nobody else changes it, I'm responsible for changing it. And so I literally in that moment just said, God, like, I don't want to feel like this anymore. And he said, well, I want you to turn that pain into celebration. Celebrate the fact that you are still here. Celebrate the fact that you have achieved some things, right? Like I said, I've got married, I have a child, and had just built a beautiful house, that, done other things to continue to press forward in my life. And so I think it was important, and I think it's important to share that we all have to get to that place internally where we're sick and tired of being sick and tired. The only way that our circumstances, I believe, are going to change is if we own the fact that this is what's happened, but am I going to allow it to attack the rest of my life, or I'm going to take it by its head and do something about it?
I think also I appreciate you bringing the point up that you, to other people, I'm sure from the outside looking in, you had it all, because we know, the amount of people that strive for, like, have the ring, the baby on the vision board, the house. And if you have those things, if you've checked those things off, then what do you have to complain about? But I don't think that that's really fair to say, well, you got it all. Why, like you're blessed. You shouldn't, complain, or heavy is the head. You pray for
Right.
these things. Now, how are you going to complain?
Right.
I don't think that we give each other grace. And so in turn, we don't usually give ourselves grace to even have
Mhm.
those feelings or have those emotions, because we, usually when those thoughts come up, at least for myself, it's like, well, how can you feel that way? You feel
Right.
bad for feeling that way. So then you don't
You
even allow
do.
yourself to feel that way.
That's it.
And that can bubble up and boil up and literally, turn into those negative thoughts, those suicidal thoughts, those depressive
Yes,
thoughts, whatever it manifests, or even disease, whatever it manifests inside of
it
you.
can. Yes.
So being depressed despite it all, being down despite it all, knowing that, and this is for anybody that's listening, knowing that if you are feeling like you looking around and, based on everybody's opinions, based on everybody's commentary, based on everybody else's vision boards, you have it all together and you have
Right.
nothing to complain about, definitely know that you are still, having a human experience, right? You are
Absolutely.
still, having these same emotional responses and reactions, and you have to be willing to allow yourself to have those so that you can work through this process, which is what I want to get into next, is like the stages of grief, because you went from wanting to like end it all because you couldn't see a way out, or you couldn't see this new your new self on the other side, to where you are now, which I'm sure is still a journey. I don't
Yeah.
believe it's a destination.
No.
But what do you feel like, or what were your stages of grief? Because we can Google it, but what do you feel like yours were? And then, based on yours, and then the work that you do with other people who have similar experiences.
Sure. Yeah. So initially, it was a lot of confusion, a lot of questions. Like I said, I was at 21, and I'm just like, literally when she was gone, it was like my whole world came to a stop. And so it was a lot of things to process. So I didn't have an opportunity to really sit in my feelings in the moment. I experienced compound grief in that I lost my uncle the week before my mother and my grandfather 2 months after her. Because she was battling cancer. She wasn't able to work. So our house went into foreclosure. So I lost the house that we were living in. So it was a lot of business and things that started it. So I started out in confusion because I just didn't know where to turn, what to do next, and how to even handle the situation. I would say the next stage for me was probably again when I went back to school, was trying to, pick up the pieces and just keep going, and then was met with resistance from my supervisor. It turned into anger because it's like the people around me don't understand. And people go through this all the time. I talk to my, coaching clients that they often get upset because when the funeral is over and everybody go back to their regular life, you're still left with processing those feelings, and you're feeling like, well, because nobody's texting anymore or calling and checking on you, that you feel like you're by yourself and you're alone. And so that turns into some anger. So I definitely felt that. But the shift for me came. So after the attempt, my family, they found me and I ended up being committed. But that was a perspective shift for me, because while I was institutionalized, I had to experience seeing other people that were there for various reasons. Well, it allowed me to see that even though what I was going through was really bad and I didn't deserve it, there were other people who were going through things that I was not. I had a roommate that I believe she was raped, right? She was a rape victim. And so, I may be hurting right now, but I'm not going through that. And sometimes it takes perspective for us to see that literally it could be worse. And so that perspective shift started the turn and started the change of me understanding, accepting that this is now my reality and what do I need to do to move forward. So the biggest thing for me was understanding that I needed a community. So that was another stage. Like I knew that I needed to be around people. I have to be engulfed with my family and people checking on me just to make sure that I don't allow this to happen again. And so that meant changing schools. I left, my school where I was at and moved back home so that I could be around a support system. And then I think the biggest one out of all of them for me was recognizing that the environment that I was in was not conducive for my mental health. If you've ever been to Kentucky or the Midwest, it gets very dark and dreary during the winter seasons, November, December, the sun rarely comes out. It's cold. It's seasonal depression. And so I knew that I just could not stay there. And so when I changed schools, I had to have an internship. And the way our God works, he allowed me to have an internship in Miami, the sunniest place in the continental United States. And so me being able to pack up and move, getting a change of environment, being in the sunlight, all of those things together allowed me to start to put together the pieces of the puzzle. So I don't think that I had a traditional stages of grief, if you will, but I definitely experienced those times of being angry, being mad at God, not understanding why he would do this, but then knowing that he loves me enough to save me. So he's got to be somewhere around here. And so all of those things together combined, I think, is what allowed me to shift and to turn and to get to where I am today.
Yeah, and I think it is important to note that, or pose the question of, is there even a standard, process of grief? Like, I don't think it's linear. It's just
Mm-hmm.
like a straight line. It's
Mm-hmm.
probably more of a zigzag, or
Of course,
at least like a curved line
for
of,
sure.
you get, you think you've gotten somewhere, and then maybe you go back a little bit because something triggers
Mm-hmm.
you. Life be life, and to your point, just because everybody else's life moves on, that does not mean that you have even worked through the first stage of
Yep.
your emotions, but other people are not giving you grace. And again, a lot of times you're not even, giving yourself grace. I have to ask you to go a little bit deeper when you say being committed and being institutionalized, because again, these are terms that I feel like we've heard, but
Mm-hmm.
what does this really mean? I have
Yeah.
not had a conversation with someone that's had
Okay.
this personal experience. So what,
Yeah.
okay, so you had a suicide attempt. Obviously it was not successful.
Yeah.
Your loved ones want the best for you. Who makes a decision? Like, how does this work? Who makes a decision that the best resource is, for you to be committed?
Yeah. So, I mean, telling the story in full. So, like I said, I was originally going to the University of Kentucky, and that incident happened, and I was angry. I was upset. I went to my apartment, packed up my clothes, and I drove to Louisville. I drove home. When I say home, I had an aunt who allowed me to live with her, so I went back to her house. When I got there, I texted my boyfriend at the time and was like, I love you. I can't do this anymore. I gotta go. And I just turned my phone off. He ended up sending that text message to one of my closest cousins, who was like a sister to me, and sent it to her. And she ended up contacting our family there in Louisville to say, I don't know what's going on with Kenisha, but y'all need to get to the house. What I did was, and I don't, I don't, again, I preface this by saying this was my journey. And so I don't, condone any of these actions, but I did purchase some pills, and I did purchase alcohol. And so that was, my thought process. So when my family, they busted in the house, they found me, semi unconscious. When they found me, they, I woke up, and I was just kind of dizzy, woozy, couldn't really quite comprehend what was going on. And they started talking to me, was like, are you okay? And I'm like, clearly I'm not okay. We need to get you some help. And so they asked me, I do remember them asking me, do you want to be helped? And I say, yes. I knew something was wrong, and I knew I needed some help. And so we have a, mental institution in Louisville that they sent me to. To be fully transparent, it felt like prison. It felt like I was literally in jail. So the building itself, and I'm literally visualizing and taking myself back. It's really dark and cold. I can remember, so like I said, I had a roommate, but they would lock the bathroom doors at night. And I guess they felt maybe you would try to drown yourself in the toilet. I don't know. I don't know the why, but like they would lock the doors to the bathroom. They would lock the bedroom doors so you couldn't get out. They wouldn't allow you to have a cell phone, although my family loved me enough that they snuck it into me when they came to visit. When if you did want to use the phone, it was like a pay phone, not that you had to pay, but it was like that same pay box type of phone. You were limited to 3-minute conversations. You were on a regimented meal plan, and if you had to take medication, they're checking in your mouth. It was horrible. I mean, it was a terrible experience in that I never knew that that's what it was going to be. But it ended up being I guess, a good experience, if you will, in that one, it allowed me to see other people, to see what other people were going through. I mean, there were legit people that were like kind of how you see it on TV, like quote crazy. And I hate to say that word, but you do see those type of people there. And I'm just like, okay, that ain't me. Where am I at? How did I get here? What am I doing? Like, I had a lot of questions of like, how did I get here? But I knew that there was pain that was happening inside of me that I just simply could not process. And so that's when I was really introduced into group therapy, of course, art therapy. I'm really big on that. I believe that you have to have outlets to be able to process those things that you're feeling. And so being institutionalized taught me the beauty of art therapy. That's why I created a grief coloring book because of that experience. But I spent 4 days in that institution, and that 4 days gave me time to see that even though this is terrible and we don't know what's about to happen next with my life, I'm not going through half of the things that these other people are, and I don't need to be here. So let's get well, let's get up out of here and start to try to put together the pieces of my life.
So then who even decides when it's time for you to be released? Because how do they decide 4 days versus 4 hours versus 4 months?
That's a good question. I again, because that was what, 2007.
Okay, listen, I'm about to let you in on my secret weapon for the summer. It's by the Osea brand and it's an algae body oil. Now, you're probably thinking, algae? Yes, baby. This vegan, cruelty-free, clean body oil literally leaves me with the perfect summer glow. It leaves my skin feeling soft and smooth, and it has the best scent. It's like this citrusy grapefruit scent that literally my husband can't keep his hands off of me. If you want to experience this for yourself, log on to OseaMalibu.com, search for Undaria algae body oil, and use GSPP as your discount code to save 10% off. That's OseaMalibu.com.
American Giant makes great clothing, t-shirts, jeans, and more right here in the U.S., creating jobs in towns and cities across the country. Support America's workers and get 20% off your first order at american-giant.com with code STAPLE20.
This podcast is sponsored by Talkspace. You know when you're really stressed or not feeling so great about your life or about yourself? Talking to someone who understands can really help. But who is that person? How do you find them? Where do you even start? Talkspace. Talkspace makes it easy to get the support you need. With Talkspace, you can go online, answer a few questions about your preferences, and be matched with a therapist. And because you'll meet your therapist online, you don't have to take time off work or arrange childcare. You'll meet on your schedule, wherever you feel most at ease. If you're depressed, stressed, struggling with a relationship, or if you want some counseling for you and your partner, or just need a little extra one-on-one support, Talkspace is here for you. Plus, Talkspace works with most major insurers, and most insured members only pay a $25 copay or less. No insurance, no problem. Now get $80 off of your first month with promo code SPACE80 when you go to Talkspace.com. Match with a licensed therapist today at Talkspace.com. Save $80 with code SPACE80 at Talkspace.com.
So thinking back that far, I would think, they would ask back. Well, of course, I have doctors and that would check on me. But I would think that, they would see the type of progress I'm making if I'm engaging. There was people that would come to the sessions and sit off in a corner. Those are the type of people I would assume they're not ready to go because they have not been actively participating in the classes, in trying to help themselves get well. I would have one-on-one doctor's appointments, in the facility. And so I would talk to them and share with them, no, I'm not feeling suicidal anymore. But I do know that I need some help. And so I started to go to therapy in my own way afterwards. But, I think a lot of it combined was just overall observing my behavior, knowing that, I'm being actively participating, I'm taking my medication. I seem to be doing well. Like I said, we had visiting hours, so my family would come and check on me. I want to say maybe the doctors talked to them. I don't quite remember, but I would think that they would have some sort of influence because they would see that you have family coming to check on you, like you have a support system. I believe all of those things are a factor into whether or not you are stable and able to be released.
Wow, Kenisha,
Yeah,
that is so scary.
it is.
All I'm sitting here thinking about, the conspiracy theorist in me is like, what if the person who was releasing you didn't like you and they
Ugh,
decided that you should stay for 4 years instead of 4 days?
ah,
It's just like the corruption that I'm
that's true.
sure goes on. And
Yeah.
then is medicine a part of like everybody? Is that like standard, or is it like case by case, or was everybody required to take
Um,
pills?
I'm gonna say it's probably case by case. I'm not certain, so I don't want to confirm, but I'm gonna say it's probably case by case. For me, I
Interesting.
struggled with sleep, and I think like the pills that I took were like just an entire bottle of sleeping pills. Because I struggled with sleep. I can literally hear. So if you've ever experienced someone pass away in the hospital, they have to check and make sure that the heart is no longer beating. And whatever device it is that they use, it has a sound to it. And I could hear that sound in my head every time I closed my eyes to go to bed. So I used to be afraid to go to sleep. So I know that they gave me medication for that, because I would like refuse to go to sleep until I wanted to go to sleep permanently.
Mhm.
So I do remember taking that medication, and it probably gave me another depressant if I had to guess. But it would be based off of a diagnosis, meeting with the doctor, and them deciding maybe you have something else deeper. It could be schizophrenia or any of the other kind of mental conditions that they would diagnose. But for me, I can speak and say that definitely probably an antidepressant and something for sleeping, because I was not sleeping at all.
So you mentioned group therapy and then art therapy. I love that they, provided you with resources that you can take beyond, their four walls, which is kind of the problem that I have with prison systems is that there is no rehabilitation.
Yep.
There is no true resources
Yep.
beyond the walls of this prison. So it's a revolving door of, right back in because you
Yeah.
don't know what to do. So in addition to, the group therapy and the art therapy, I know that you have the Brighter Tomorrow Foundation and you are providing and creating resources. But what are some of those resources? Like, what are some of the maybe non-traditional modalities, maybe coaching? Therapy is not necessarily for talk therapy, I should say, not necessarily
Hmm.
for everyone, but coaching might be. Like, what are some ways that if someone listening to this is having any thoughts, and not even necessarily suicidal thoughts, but baby, life be life
Just
for
life,
all
child.
of us, like
Whoop it up and
seriously,
down.
for all of us. And
Yes. Yes.
we would just be doing such a disservice to even pretend
Yeah.
like we got it all together, or like there's not something
Yeah.
every single day that's like,
Hmm.
damn, why can't
Yep.
I get
Here we
that
go
together? Or
again.
yeah, it's all I mean, I say to my husband so often, like, damn, it's always something. It's always
Always.
something. And so for anybody who might be going through something right now and seeking, alternative resources, what are some like therapy or practices or things that you've seen that have really been beneficial in your work that you do?
Yeah. So I am a certified life coach. I decided to walk that journey honestly when the pandemic started. um, I knew that I wanted to get in a space to start, sharing my story, because I think there is power in your testimony, but I didn't quite know how. And I had a mentor to tell me, or ask me rather, so what is one thing that you can talk about that you don't have to Google? And I was like, grief, because again, folks are out here just being Googleable people, right? And so I said grief, and he said, okay, well, why don't you start, practicing that and start sharing your story and talking about it. And so with us in the pandemic, as everyone knows, we started losing people just left and right. And I felt like, I have come safely through the pain portion of my grief, that I was in a position to be able to help others. And so I did become a certified life coach specializing in grief and loss, because I recognize what that dark place looks like. And it is a struggle to get from where you are right now to the future that you may not even see. And so I wanted to be that person, because you need to know that not only are you getting tools and getting help, but you're also walking with someone who absolutely understands. And I think it's important to be able to connect with someone who has some sort of, relatability. So I do life coaching. I also preface this by saying that therapy is always, always an important piece of the puzzle too. And to understand the difference between the two, a therapist is someone who deals with your past. So if you are looking to identify kind of the root cause of your behavior, or why you think the way you do, or act the way you do, or attract certain things to your life, it may be rooted in your past. And that is what a therapist is able to do. They're able to dig deep into your past. A life coach is someone who helps you with moving forward into the future from where you are right now, navigating that gap in the middle. And so that's what I do. I do offer those services. And then I do a lot of different workshops as well. I do an annual one around the holiday season. It is one of the toughest times for grief, of course, because our loved ones aren't around the Thanksgiving table or around the Christmas tree. And so I do those annual workshops to gather together and to give you some tools to be able to just navigate what does it look like to be around family if you so choose. Maybe you don't even want to participate. So how can you safely do that? So I make sure that, I can give you as much information to be well prepared going into the holiday season. And then overall, just, I do a lot of inspirational messages and sharing my journey, just because I believe, again, there is some comfort in knowing that you're not going through this by yourself.
So on the other side of it, you know, piggybacking off of not going through it by yourself, in addition to a coach, hopefully you have a community, whether it's a huge community or just that one person who you can count on.
Yep.
But for that person sitting in those shoes, or sitting in that seat, what's your advice for the friend of the person who is going through this process and dealing with grief? Because if you are struggling to kind of work through your emotions and even understand what you're feeling, I know you're struggling to communicate what you're feeling.
Yeah.
So how can we best support people in their time of need if they don't know how they need to be supported?
I think the biggest thing to do is just to be there, and be there looks different. So maybe you're not in the same city as them, but this is your good girlfriend. I would put reminders in your phone to just do a check-in, because they may not always reach out. And I tell this to my clients too, because they feel that, well, people should check on me and they should, do all of that, which is true. I'm not saying that they shouldn't, but sometimes you also have to take the lead and say, hey, you never know what they may be going through, so you may have to reach out too. But for the friend, maybe put a reminder in your phone, every Sunday, let's do a check-in. You want to give encouraging words. Sometimes it may be you see a scripture on social media, or you see a motivational quote or video, and you share that with them, right? You may want to just send them a meal, send them a Cash App and say, hey, dinner is on me. Because a lot of times, we're not able to think about some of the common things that most people are doing. If I'm going to go out to eat, if I'm going to cook, do I need my house clean? Can I send the kids off somewhere? So sometimes just take an initiative to just be there in the most practical ways. Shows support without having to sit there under them and, they're crying. Like, it doesn't always look like that. Support can also look like the tangible things that most people may not consider or think about too. So I think it's important to just kind of think about what is the best way that you can show up and just be a support to them. And trust me, they know. They may not always say thank you in the moment. They may not come with a thank you card, but just know that you showing up in those little specific ways to relieve some stress in some capacity does more than you could ever know. And it also lets them know in the back of the mind that, my friend, thought about me, sent me a gas card, sent me cash out for some coffee, any of those type of things is just a reminders that people do love me, even though I may be hurting and feeling this way inside.
You know what that sounds like to me? Acts of service.
Mm.
When all else fails,
Yeah.
just find a way to do an act of service. That is never going to steer you
Nope.
wrong. Because it's those simple things that people don't think about. People always are trying to go after like the grand,
No.
gestures, but help me not have to think about dinner tonight, especially if I got some kids over here. So I
Okay.
think those are really great practical suggestions for the next time someone in your life is going through something. I love that. I have truly, truly enjoyed this conversation, and I said that without thinking, but it's not a lie. I have enjoyed this conversation because I got a lot from it. I told you at the beginning I wasn't looking forward to this conversation because it's such a heavy topic, but I learned a lot. You definitely have, perspective and experiences that are, super unique. And so I'm so grateful that you were here and willing to be so honest and transparent about what you are going through in an effort to help someone else, which I know that this episode is going to do. I really had like all of these notes over here. I wanted to talk about like mothering while motherless, but I really think I'm going to save that because I really am feeling led to do like a whole mother series from like, because I've been thinking of it personally, my audience knows my business, but I've been thinking of it from mothering with a mother wound. Like my mother is still very much alive and well, but she's, her presence is not very motherly. So that is the perspective that I've been thinking of it from. But there is an entire population of motherless mothers who are struggling. And so I think it's so important that we have these conversations. So I so appreciate you being here.
Absolutely. No, thank you. And that's real. I have an 11-year-old daughter at that. So it's a journey right now.
Listen, I'm gonna bring you back. I'm gonna bring you back because girl mom especially. Okay, I got issues, but baby, I got two boys. I got two boys over here. Okay, so I feel like that the girl mom thing is an extra added layer. If you have mommy issues or if you're living without your mom. So we will definitely have to have that conversation. But for this, to kind of wrap up this episode, for anybody that's listening that is struggling right now with those intrusive thoughts or dealing with their own grief process, please let them know where they can find you, how they can follow you online, and any resources that you have to share.
Yes, please do not feel like you have to go through this by yourself, because you are not. There is a world of people that you couldn't even imagine that are going through similar things, may not be exactly the same, but can relate. And I often say, if you haven't walked in these shoes, perhaps you may not quite understand. So when you find other people who have, there is comfort in knowing that you're not alone. So please feel free to connect with me at Kenisha Nichelle. Instagram is my kind of platform of choice. So I'm Kenisha Nichelle, N as in Nancy, not Michelle, on IG, as well as my website, kenishanichelle.com. There is a section on there for life coaching. If you're interested, please definitely reach out. And then if you have any questions, if you just need someone to talk to, slide in my DMs. I'm always available to chat and to talk, because I want you to know that you are not going through this alone.
We appreciate you for being a resource. We appreciate you for your honesty and for sharing. And we will definitely have you back on another episode of Girl Stop Playin. Now, if y'all are tuned in, or if you have a friend that just needs a little pick me up, a little pep talk, I definitely want to invite you and encourage you to check out my other podcast, one of my other podcasts, The Sermon. It is all about helping you get your mind right, because life be life. And sometimes you just need a little reminder of who you are and whose you are. I love you, and I will catch you on the next episode. Peace out.